Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with Stephanie. I'm Stephanie Buckland, your host. I am so excited, super delighted, and I am elated right now to be interviewing my friend and colleague, Julia Compton, the Love Cultivator. Hi, Julia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. I am honored to be here and to be able to share this space with you, as well as have a conversation that other people can be involved in. So, again, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I can't wait to dive into this conversation. It's going to be so yummy. So I would love to start with an introduction of who you are, what you do, and what kind of magic shows up as a result.
I love that question. So beautifully said. So I am Love Cultivator, aka Julia. I, right now, specifically in my life, I am helping people through generational embodiment practices that can look like yoga, specifically mindful hatha. And I also do shamanic Reiki. I love shamanic practices and being able to use the elements as well as Mama Earth as a tool for people to reconnect with themselves. I also do intuitive guidance, and all of that really helps nervous system regulation. So that's a huge part of what I do as well. Just sharing different practices within my modalities, as well as being able to kind of cater to people's individual needs. So I do that with private sessions as well as groups. I do workshops and also have some other fun stuff that we'll get into later, specifically around inner child healing. But that's what I do. And the magic that shows up in all of that work is so beautiful. It always touches my soul and my heart. And just having the ability to be around people that are continually teaching me through teaching them is such a gift. To be able to have different mirrors and also be able to know that I am able to share my gifts that I once didn't feel like I could. And didn't always look at as a gift. So I'm just so honored to do this work. And honestly, it shows up all the time, everywhere. I'm always meeting people, and they're intrigued by what I'm doing. So I feel like I leave little, sparkles everywhere I go, and I'm able to really connect with like-minded people, such as yourself. I'm so grateful that we've been able to connect, and it's just like that, it's like a spark, and then it lights both of us up, and we're able to continue to go on in, our individual lives, but that spark and that connection is really what stays with you, and to know that you kind of have that soul family out there. So that's the magic that shows up.
I love that. Thank you for that detailed response because some people miss that part. So that's so cool. I love it. So I'd love to talk a little deeper about your why. So I know a lot of us healers get involved in healing because we have to heal ourselves first. That's usually what leads us into this healing, these therapies and these modalities that we do. So what is your why, Julia?
I love this question. And I love remembering this question, So I always say that this work found me because it truly did right when I needed it to. And then I decided, I'm going to teach it and I want to learn more. But initially, again, like you said, I had to go through my own healing journey that it allowed me to lose myself, and I didn't know who I was anymore. With some of those things, just to kind of touch briefly on them, I have kind of always grown up in an abusive household, and eventually, I know I shared with you before, but I have experienced, child loss, and that really, all of that, as well as just kind of being, I've told you, but neurodivergent. I've always felt a little different and kind of like an outcast in a way, or sometimes even, a burden. So with those things, it guided me towards some of this work. For instance, when I had initially started more on my healing journey, I had lost a lot of people in my life during COVID from deaths, and I had lost three uncles in 1 month. So one of them was from addiction, the other two were from COVID. And when that happened, it opened up my eyes to spirituality so much more. I always felt gifted and being able to communicate with, consciousness and life force energy, but that allowed me to really listen and tune in. It was the first time I ever went to a psychic, the first time I ever really felt into my body a lot more. And through, tuning into that channel, I was able to discover Reiki and energy healing. And what that did for me was so transformative. I just felt like I could let some of the baggage down and not carry it with me anymore, and know that, healing takes time and it's not linear, but also to know that grief is a part of the process and that I don't have to do all of that alone. So that really helped. Eventually, that's also when I found yoga. Specifically, kind of after I had navigated child loss, I, was in a very deep depressive state, and it was hard for me to want to get out of bed and to have motivation to do things. During that time, I had also lost a job and had lost the person that I was in a relationship with. So it was a lot all at once. And I felt like I really wanted to be a mom. So for me, that was a very difficult time. And yoga brought me back into my body and allowed me to really tune in to my heartbeat and my heart space, and just remembering that I'm alive and I'm here. And that's a gift. It brings tears to my eyes. But eventually, doing these practices and sharing different bits of my soul with myself and with other people around me, I realized I wasn't in the right environments, and around the right people. And I discovered Sweeha, which is where I go to college, the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. I found their IHAP program, the Integrative Healing Arts Practitioner program. And I waited 3 years to be able to go to Sweeha. I'm originally from Michigan, so I moved across the country from Michigan to Arizona to come back to college and be able to help people and serve humanity in the ways that I once needed for myself, and to be able to hold space with integrity. So, uh, my why is because I needed it. And my why is also because I know I'm meant to help and connect with other people through my pain and my hurt that I experienced. I want to remind people that they are not alone and that they are so much more than just their emotions, and that some of these things are, I don't want to say they're meant to happen, but they're guiding you whether you know it or not, to the right place, to the right time, and to the right people. So that's my why.
That's a very, very deep why. And honestly, I mean, I feel like that's what keeps us in the healing world and
Mhm.
why we keep going in this healing modality, because like we have such strong experiences before we find these healing therapies that it's like these are the things that saved our lives. And
Yeah,
it really
literally, like to
is.
put it lightly. Yes.
Yes, literally. I mean, I was 27 when I found yoga, and it literally saved my life because I had carpal tunnel syndrome and I could not fathom life without my hands. I couldn't figure out what on earth I was going to do with my life if I couldn't use my hands because I was in an office setting and working as an admin, and that was like my whole life. And so it was a powerful aha moment. Just, and I was like before 30, I had no idea that there was going to be so much more to healing than just the yoga practice. But I literally dove so deeply into yoga. I have like, I don't know, 15 books on yoga. Just, first it was meditation and the Yoga Sutras and understanding like all of that. all the books that Deepak Chopra wrote about yoga. There's so many wonderful books out there that just took me and held me as
Mhm.
I was coming into the realization of who I was and who I was going to be.
Mhm.
So, yes, I totally get that. It's like yoga is the gateway drug.
It is. I always tell people that. I'm like, I know we talk about yoga all the time, but like, it changed
Yeah.
my life. It changed the
Yeah.
way I show up in the world. I love the philosophy. I'm right there with you. I love the books. I remember the first time I meditated, and actually like felt the experience of meditation, not even having done my YTT yet. And that's what drew me to the work as well, because to experience that kind of practice in your own space is just something so beautiful. But to share that in community is just, you can't duplicate it, you know? Especially with like-minded people, it's so special.
Definitely. Definitely. So, I'd love to touch on the name of your business. So,
Yeah.
I've always identified as a love warrior. It was somewhere around that same time, the yoga time, 27, 28 years old, when I was given this title. I was working in the LGBT community. I was volunteering for the Orange County LGBT Center. We were doing canvassing for gay marriage, which was totally outside of my scope of reality. Like I had never ever considered going and knocking on people's doors and talking about gay marriage, so it was a trip. But we had to go to this training as a group, and the woman that did the talk was telling us that we're all love warriors with what we're
Mm,
doing. And I thought, I really like that, because at that point I had already come up with the mantra that was, I'm fighting for love and healing the world one person at a time. And
mm,
this is like my mantra that I've held ever since. And so I knew love was my purpose. I had a meditation where I was given love, like love is the reason I'm here. And I
yeah.
thought, what the heck does that mean? What do I do with that? And it took about 20 years of exploration to really, really deeply understand what that meant. But now, all these years later, I'm still one love warrior everywhere. Like
Mm.
anytime I have to sign up and do a username, it's the number one LOVEWARRIOR. It's everywhere. So like that's how who I am. And so I love this love cultivator. Like I think our for my first message to you was like, hey, fellow love warrior, which
Yes, yeah, it was. And I was like, "Oh, yay." Because you get it and you understand the message, and also that you can relate in your own story and like why it was brought to you. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, specifically Love Cultivator, I actually got it as an intuitive download in 2024 in like January. I'll never forget it because it was something that I was like, "Oh my God, I love this. This is me." Like I never thought of another name to give myself. But I at the time, I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but um in my past, the last 10 years prior to doing a lot more of the holistic work, I was actually in the cannabis community for 10 years. So that also kind of helped inspire the name a little bit with the cultivator aspect. But
Cool.
I, through everything I learned about myself and, transmuting my pain and finding myself again, I realized that I had to build the love that I want to see in the world around me and have it reflected back, outwardly as a ripple. So I wanted it to be a statement that you are the cultivator of the love that you wish to see and receive, and also that it is a practice, just like anything else. It's a choice to choose love and to show up with love. And, I feel like all of us can take the advice of giving ourselves a little bit more grace sometimes and releasing the need to be perfect. And I believe that's what love is, in a way, is loving unconditionally is what all of us are really looking for, you know? And we have to have that within self. And we, can have it from other people, but it hits so different when you know the work that it takes to be able to share that kind of love with people. So that was my goal with the name, but I also wanted, a cute little nickname. So people do call me Love, and I love that because it's kind of like when you go to the store and somebody calls you sweetie or something and you're like, oh, like it made me feel good.
Yeah.
Um, so I like sharing those little bits of just humanness with people, and letting them know that they're not alone and that, again, love is a practice. So I like to be a symbol of that and to let them know that it's a journey, but it's so worth it. Every step is guiding you to a deeper part of yourself and strengthening that connection you have with the world around you. And I think that we forget that sometimes, because there is so much that goes on that we can't necessarily control and can sometimes impact, how we feel about ourselves and about how we can help the world and the communities around us. But my logo specifically, I had that made because uh, I love supporting local artists, but it actually, if you look in the background, it has a thumbprint. And because I was in the cannabis industry, seeds also have a similar looking thing on the outside of them where they look like a fingerprint. So I
Yeah.
wanted it to be a symbol of everyone's an individual. Everyone adds their own little bit of magic to the world by showing up authentically as they are and as they wish to be. So that is there if you kind of look at it. And then again, I have the little heart brow, which I love because sometimes sprouts do look like little hearts. And I
Yeah.
believe that the colors pink and green too were absolutely chosen on purpose. I believe in color theory and, all the magic that is behind that. So I wanted people to look at my logo and know what my message was, even if they don't necessarily know what I do. And again, took me a couple years to develop what Love Cultivator, excuse me, actually looked like outside of, who I used to be. So changing jobs and whatnot really allowed me to do that and fully diving into not only my schooling, but my healing journey a little bit more, and kind of taking certain masks off and being able to rewrite stories and narratives allowed me to make Cultivator what it is today.
Nice. Yeah, I love this. I I think that it's really beautiful where like the path that you've stepped into and what you have created as a result of that. I think it's
Mhm.
amazing because like I was recently invited to this beautiful event and she was talking about this concept of and Buddhism talks about this of right livelihood or flourishing from a place of alignment or dharma. Like these
Mhm.
concepts are very much like a very spiritual teaching, but also speaking to us about, being in alignment with the work that we do and recognizing that it is all about service and all
Mhm.
about like really um showing up because we believe in what we are and who we have become. So that's beautiful
Yeah, it
too.
was like I knew who I was becoming before I became her?
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, let's dive in a little deeper. So,
Yeah.
when we first started talking about doing the podcast, you were talking about coming home to yourself and exploring self-connection. So, I know that's a lot of what you've done in your journey. How do you give your clients permission to do this?
Yeah, so a big thing for me is being able to cultivate a safe space for people. Safety is usually that first threshold that we encounter when we meet new people or we're going on new journeys. We can sometimes feel that internal fire of like, I don't know how I feel about this yet, you know? And I really want to make sure that people feel accepted and they feel included and they feel like they can be themselves. Something that I have learned, especially in groups, is that when people feel safe to show up as them and, maybe shed a tear or be able to say something or relate to what someone else said that they've never been able to like put words to, it creates something that allows them to release. And so for me, it can look a lot of different ways. But really, I want to make sure that people feel comfortable. And I know that sometimes that's really about asking the right questions and making sure that people feel heard and seen. And I really do my best in whatever I'm doing in my life, but especially in my work, to make sure that that is the case and that people can, want to come to my events or want to work with me because maybe that sets me apart, But I know what it feels like to not feel that, and it can be a little hard to want to do things with, again, groups because of maybe outside judgment and things of that nature. So, what I do is I really set foundations of what's acceptable and what kind of is going to happen before we even really dive into that deep stuff. And that can happen individually or that can, again, happen in groups. Specifically in groups, we kind of go over what permission looks like. And that can be permission of self, right? Like I give myself permission to be vulnerable. Or it can also be, again, maybe from others in the group, maybe not being able to express yourself comes from not being heard. And so letting people have that space to sit in what they have said and let them feel that out and let them express that fully. And sometimes when we do that, magical, beautiful things can happen again with release. And release can be, yes, crying, but it also can just be like releasing the burden of carrying something alone. Because again, like I was mentioning, a lot of people feel what we feel, and we don't talk about that enough. We always feel like, oh, this is only something I might be experiencing. And that's why I really enjoy group activities, is because it's not always the case. So, again, I really focus on comfortability and asking the right questions, creating a vibe that feels safe and approachable. For instance, with the inner child workshops, I want people to feel like they can bring their inner child, because that's part of what we're doing. And I want them to touch on those bits and pieces of reparenting that they still need to do, maybe, because we're in community to do it together. It's not something they have to do alone anymore. So that's some of the ways that I try to do that in my work.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier about having integrity when you're holding space for someone.
Mhm.
What can you elaborate on that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of us, when we want to be there for people, we can want to fix the situation, you know?
Mm,
And when we do that, we're really interjecting on someone's processing. So for me, a big thing I learned is to not offer a tissue until somebody asks for a tissue, That's a little thing that you could do with people in your life, and that's like a tip, But that's something that made me look at things a little differently. Like, oh yeah, like I'm interrupting their process because I want it to stop.
mm,
So I really looked at my own reflection of that, like why is that? And it's because I hate to see other people hurting. I'm an empath. Like I feel for them. My heart hurts for them. But I believe that it's allowing them to sit in the feelings that they're having and be with them in that and not leave them to necessarily deal with it alone. So, with that, I believe that kind of cultivating a sanctuary, if you will, between us and whatever space we're doing different modalities, but For instance, with Reiki, right? Like, I like to ask people certain questions that allow them to share more insight with me, especially I know when we did our session together, I kind of told you, like, hey, I was feeling really heavy in this area, and I felt maybe more tension in this area, and then have that open dialogue of being able to talk about why that is, or maybe even being able to share, oh, like I felt emotional during this as a practitioner, and then them be able to kind of validate, well, I also feel that, and this is why. So it's just nice to be able to have the conversations and not necessarily like look past them all the time. I think sometimes people are so fast paced because that's what, society kind of asks of us. So I allow people to slow down and just be with what is. And I feel like a lot of us don't have that space a lot because we're always having to do the next thing and, prepare for something else, or kind of also feel like, oh, what's gonna happen like if I do this, but I feel like when we hold that space with integrity and with grace and with compassion, uh it hits different, we're able to allow new layers to kind of unfold for us and be able to meet new versions of ourselves in that process. Like, I know you've mentioned it a couple of times, but that becoming factor of being able to continuously become ourselves, but also being our best and greatest self that we've ever been right now, but continually going towards our highest and best version. As well. So I like to provide that space where that can actually happen and they feel that transformation, maybe not even just in the session, but days after. A lot of the time when I have Reiki clients specifically, they do mention that where they're like, I'm still feeling like the effects of this and it feels really good and I feel held, and that's a big thing for me. I want people to feel like they are being held. And I we shared this together, but I want to reflect your love back to you and allow you to see yourself through a different lens in whatever it is that we're doing. I really love doing it in yoga too, just because it brings people to tears sometimes, being able to, you know, meet their edge in a new way, or being able to experience their practice in a way that allows them to want to like integrate differently, and sometimes that can look like maybe just holding a pose for a little bit longer, or even just taking the time to actually breathe and be conscious of that, as well as the thoughts that arise, and knowing that we don't have to attach to them and being the observer a little bit more. So, those are some ways that I try to help people in that way and be able to hold space with compassion.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I learned early on in my yoga career. I partnered with this girl that did Holy Fire Reiki, which was really an interesting Reiki practice. And we hosted this event that was like I was teaching the yoga, she was doing the Reiki during the yoga practice. During Shavasana, there was this girl that just started bawling. And I
Mm.
thought, that's beautiful. Like, I'm just going to hold space for this girl. I'm not going to intervene. I'm just going to hold space. Like, I understand she's processing something and it's coming out. And this is a very, very important moment for her, And I've seen that over and over again in my practice where people are profoundly touched by the work that we do. It's
Mhm.
like it's like we touch their souls.
Yeah.
And in every moment that we do that, we give them a new opportunity to be a better version of themselves. Like you just said, like that is the beauty of the work we do. So, oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Julia. Okay, so let's dive into inner child exploration. So I personally have done a lot of inner child work. I've done my own shadow work and my own like exploration. In my Reiki teacher in Reiki 1 actually wanted us to do a 21-day chakra cleanse. And in
Mm.
that chakra cleanse, I had to design it myself. It wasn't something she guided. So I designed this chakra cleanse. And in that chakra cleanse, I met my inner child. I met past trauma. I met past versions of myself that I was still holding on to. I had so much like so many aha moments in that first exploration of myself, but it guided me through I don't even know how many dark nights of the soul because I
Mhm.
needed to look at it over and over again to really process and heal. But was really what was really powerful, and this is what I experienced 2 years ago after I was assaulted. And I shared that recently on my Facebook page about the experience. Um, it led to writing my recent book, Holding Myself Through the Truth. And I had to go through crisis counseling as a result of the
Mm.
experience. And this counselor took me through this concept called internal family systems. And
Mm.
it is fascinating because, like, we are a culmination of all of ourselves, like
Yep.
all the selves that I have been throughout my life. But there were specific aspects of myself. The ones that I remember very distinctly, the 8-year-old who was making decisions about relationships, not a great person to make decisions about who to date or who to fall in love with. Um, the 15-year-old who's kind of like a sexual vixen who loves to like be a tease and get into that stuff. And okay, naughty girl. this is
Rawr.
that is right. That's the Scorpio side of me and the fire side of me, but also like this girl really shouldn't be the one that I make decisions from when I'm just starting to date someone, you know? The 28-year-old version of myself who was just getting into business, and then 36-year-old version of myself who'd started a wellness center, who was like a go-getter and like type A, very intense kind of personality. And I saw all of these versions of myself and I thought, okay, I understand myself from this 8-year-old version because I remember the trauma from that time. I remember what happened. I was rejected by a boy, and that was a really powerful moment in that moment. The 15-year-old was raped again, traumatized by a man. I've had lots and lots of experiences where men have created fear in my
Yeah.
body. So as a
Same.
result, like I dated women. I was like, screw this. I'm not going to be with men, for the longest time. I've always identified as bisexual, but I kept control of the men. Anytime I was in any kind of like new thing, it was long term with girls, but very short term with guys. And so this last year has been an exploration of that, the basically the heterosexual side of myself. Like, what does it look like to be in a relationship with a man? How can I do this? And it's really led to some beautiful things. So I'm excited to talk about inner child work because I know that the work that I've done has been a huge effort to resolve trauma and to see myself for who I actually am and not like deceiving myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for doing this.
Of
So
course.
how do you incorporate inner child work with what you do?
Yeah, right now I have a series called Return to Play, and it is a inner child exploration workshop. So I've been doing it the last 3 months. I'll be doing one more session in August, but I will bring it back as well. This was my first real workshop, and I feel like with the inner child stuff, that was my biggest thing. Through therapy and through,
Mhm.
like you talked about with the attunements and Reiki and kind of facing the mirror. I had to go back and get her and hold her and be with a little me. Before I could really transition to kind of go meet my inner teenager again. But that's something that I'll be kind of talking about towards the end of this part of the conversation, that we'll be able to elaborate on a little bit more. But right now, with the return to play, I have each one a different theme. And the first one in May was about safety and what safety looks like through play. which was very fun. I wanted to make the experience something that allows people to meet and connect with their inner child in a more playful way, but also being serious about it at the same time, because those things can coexist together. And we sometimes forget that. But when we do things a little bit more playful, or even allowing ourselves to enjoy the process a little bit more, it isn't as heavy on the heart. And we can go and look back a little bit, um, I would say, with a little bit more flexibility and resilience. So I really enjoy that. And I wish the workshops didn't have to end right now, but I have,
Mm.
schooling and other things that I have going on. And I'm doing some traveling workshops as well with yoga. So, um, the inner child stuff is still something I include in my yoga practices. For instance, instead of us doing a forward fold, we're doing a jellyfish. You make it fun. You change how you show up. You can do the same practices, but you make them attuned to what you want. And for me, that's fun. I enjoy having a good time and making people laugh and sharing humor in that way. I also think that it's my way of combating authority sometimes, because most people, they see that whimsy, that fun, that bubbly, and they're like, "Oh, naive," you know? That's not the case. It's human to have these things and to do this work. And again, with the generational embodiment stuff that, is the foundation of my work, I feel like we all hold on to generational trauma. No matter who we are, we have it in us. We have oppression from cultural things and society. I mean, it's there's just so much we don't know about that's stored in our body, in our DNA, in our behaviors, in our habits. And to be able to confront those again in community is so nice, instead of thinking we have to do it all alone all the time and be disciplined 100% of the time. But just allowing a space that is a little bit more free flowing. And again, you can show up and you can cry and you can stomp your feet and you can do all these things. But with my workshops as well, for instance, the one I was mentioning, safety in May, we also were observing what the air element looks like and how we can honor that element in our processing. So each one we're doing, I work with shamanic practices, so I'm honoring the wheel of life and the medicine wheel. But also I like to refer it to uh the hero's journey, because it's the same thing, but I'm attaching, different parts of the journey with the elements of the earth. So, again, the next one was honoring the fire within us and honoring our expression and what that looks like. The last one that we just did was working with the medicine of water and being able to release some things. And the final one in August, August 6th, will be, of course, working with the earth element. And we'll be exploring what embodiment actually looks like during play. Because I think that is a huge thing that people. They ask me about all the time, like, how do I feel embodied? Or how do I embody this version of myself? And it's by practicing and showing up as that version and doing things that that version does and making it a routine. For me, it was, always starting with my thoughts first and showing myself love through my internal monologue, and then showing that outwardly, right? With like maybe the food that I eat or the people and the company that I keep and whatnot. But we have like dance parties and we have bubbles and we journal together. We have reparenting tools that we'll explore together with reflections. In the most recent one that we did, release and the water one, we actually had some tea together. And again, I'm an intuitive guidance baddie, so we were speaking into our tea, and I think that's a huge thing. Like, I speak into all my drinks. I know it sounds maybe woo-woo, but we'll get into that later too. It's good to do those things because again, every drink you take of that, you're like, oh yeah, I'm taking in more of my own love, or oh yeah, I'm taking in more of my intention I put into this. And the same with food and nutrition. And again, nutrition can be thoughts, it can be, working out. It doesn't have to just be food. But yeah, exploring kind of those things in a fun and different environment than people are normally seeing. And again, when these workshops kind of end after August, I do plan on doing this again next year. But again, I want to make everyone different. So, something that I've really realized, especially through therapy, and as you were mentioning too, is that next is the inner teenager. And, they're usually a little bit spicier and they have a different approach to life. And they're kind of getting out of that, like, adolescence, and they're ready to be more free. So the work kind of transitions from just inner child work to the inner teenager work, and then eventually to that inner parenting work, as well as the inner elder that we all have within us at all times. But honoring each of them in a way that feels symbolic, as well as something that you can go home with and have tools to be able to connect to these things with. One thing that I've been doing in the workshops is not only group Reiki, guided meditation, somatic movement, but I, again, am doing some of the other things. Each one's a little different, but um, that allow us to actually remember the experience. For instance, again, with the last one, we had the tea and we did some journaling and stuff, but with the group Reiki stuff, I feel the energy so intensely, and it's so beautiful to put them in a meditative state, meet their inner child, and be able to connect with them, kind of let them have like a gift to bring back, but also a gift to give. So when you meet that inner child, you let them give you some of that medicine that you need right now, and you give them something that they can have back, or even if it's just a memory. I know for me, I've had that in some of my own meditations where I forgot about things and my inner child still remembers, and it's like when I finally connected with her again, I just felt like I need to make sure that I can be there for her, and I need to be able to save her from some of those situations that she wasn't safe in, before, and kind of cater to what she needs so I could show up myself. And by nature, I'm kind of a playful, goofy, youthful person. I like to embody my inner child just as is, but seeing that in other people is what makes me happy because I know people can be inspired by that, and the work is just so important, especially doing it outside of therapy and just like, talk therapy. It can
For
be
sure.
really nice to have that community and know that you're able to have fun with it, and again, not make it something that's always so heavy all the time. And yeah, be able to just let go and
Yeah.
release.
Yeah. I was I was actually thinking about that. Like I I've been in therapy for most of my adult life because I absolutely think that therapy is valuable and that mental
Mhm.
health is very, very important.
Yes.
Um, and that crisis counseling was like the first time that I had really like dived into myself. You
Mhm.
know, every therapist I've ever been with, it's always been like cognitive behavioral therapy, did a little bit of EMDR, did a little like brain spotting, and like a lot of really cool therapies. But the first time I really started looking at my inner child, I was like, oh my God, I've never done this. I've never really examined myself like this. And yet, I can see the value in doing this in a community setting because there was so much heartache. You know, I mentioned the dark night of the soul more than once.
Mhm.
There has been a lot of like, you know, I tend to be kind of an intense person. So, okay,
Same.
I'm going to dive deep. Okay, I'm going to dive deep, and it's going to be me, myself, my journal, my little dog, and a pen, and probably like really examining and thinking and processing and meditating and soothing and all the things, right? But um I think the lightheartedness of doing it in a community is like the other side of that.
Yeah.
Because, it's like your soul really needs both. You need
Mm-hmm.
to be able to go deep. You also need to be able to bring it back and go light
Mm-hmm.
and, play. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you. Oh my goodness. Okay. So my next question is about embracing your inner woo and
Yes.
your whimsy because I am totally that girl too. I'm very bubbly and I love to play. I love to incorporate laughter in the things that I do and playfulness. And so tell me about how this influences your work.
Yeah, I think with that, it allows you to really trust yourself. And I know in the past I've struggled with self-trust. So, by kind of listening and tuning into my intuition and to my connection, I was able to embrace it, right? But I wasn't sharing it yet. And speaking like on things when I felt those nudges. But now I have developed that trust and again that like connection to the point where I don't care anymore, you know? I am who I am and I'm gonna let people have their own experience, you know, and I'm gonna have my own experience. But I believe that by embracing that side of us, that woo-woo nature and that whimsy, it really allows you, again, to not only trust yourself deeper, but it allows you to experience more wonder and more awe in life and show up a little bit more fearless, like than maybe before. At least for me, I'm an earth sign, I'm gonna disclose that. But I love when I go outside on a walk and like I'm tuned in to the birds, you know, or even the way the wind's blowing, the way that little things kind of come into my peripherals and like I notice them or even the people that I encounter on my walk or the words that are shared. Every single thing it has a meaning. It's even when it doesn't feel like it you don't have to make meaning of it. You just need to observe it. And uh that's taught me a lot, you know, but when you also are able to embrace that whimsy and that woo woo, everything's a little bit more fun and you can make something more of a ritual than like a routine. I make bath salts and I think I gave you some, but the candles and, you know, I do all of those things because it brings me joy to do it for myself. And I love being able to cater to myself and show up for myself in those ways. Like when I want to take a bath, I can put my bath salts in my bath. I can light a candle. I can read a really good book and I can show up for myself because I have that routine with myself and that ritual, if you will, with myself. And have some hot tea, you know. But I think that also just makes things a little bit more approachable for people when they know that it doesn't always have to be so serious. And we're in a world where we're taught to sometimes be serious all the time and like be so critical of the way we do things or the way that, you know, other people do things, even. And I just think that embracing that side of me has allowed me to fully step into more of my authenticity and be able to also protect my energy a little bit more. That's something that I didn't realize I could have been doing better at until I really dived into trusting my intuition. One thing I actually did to kind of heighten this for me, I learned in a class and I loved it. So I still do it. But I did a 30-day silence cleanse. And that was a beautiful practice for me. It's really being able to limit your interactions with your voice, especially when you're alone. It can be, you know, having a silent ride in the car, having dinner in silence, no music when you're on a walk, little things like that. Of course, you can still indulge in conversation when it's necessary, but you kind of keep your voice a little bit lower and more intentional with the words that you speak. But when you are able to actually indulge in this silence a little bit more, you observe your thoughts differently and you can catch yourself in these loops, or even when you do catch yourself, you can ask the right questions to yourself internally and and ask why, or like, where is this coming from? But also not hold any judgment, not attach to it, and just kind of let that thought go. But taking note of your thoughts in that way really taught me so much about my intuition and how to tune in a little bit more to that inner knowing and just that inner voice. Because sometimes those thoughts aren't yours, and it's some people don't know that and they don't know how to decipher that necessarily. So I highly suggest that as well. That was something that really taught me a lot. And that might seem weird to people, to do a silence cleanse, but for me, I mean, I still do it sometimes even with, social media and other stuff. I need a break and I need to make sure I can kind of detox from certain things. Just like people do fasting, it's kind of the same thing, but in a different way. And, uh, being able to have fun with that too, because I would catch myself like making little voices or like doing little things to fill the silence, and I was like, wait, no, don't do it. Like, let yourself sit in it. So it really taught me a lot about observing and being able to kind of monitor those bits and pieces of my mind that I sometimes forget are just running on autopilot sometimes. But with
Yeah,
the generational embodiment work, your mind and your body are connected, and we need to tune into both of them, and cater to both of them in different ways. So yeah, I don't
for
know.
sure.
It's a never ending practice, really.
It really is. Yeah, it's we just go. I I have often referred to the healing journey as peeling an onion.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when you
Same.
first start your healing journey, you get the outside edge that's all crusty and ugly looking. It's like the masks you've worn and the crap that you've endured and all this stuff. And you peel that stuff away, and then you've got this soft inner layer that really needs tender care. It's like you've got to give yourself compassion and forgiveness and silence and like reverence and self-love and all the things that allow you to feel heard by yourself, because I, I know as kids, we've heard, and I don't know if your generation has heard this, but I know my generation heard children must be seen and not heard. That is
Yeah.
something that's been for generations.
Mm-hmm.
And when we experience that and we experience the feeling of literally trauma of I am not being heard and I am not being seen and my needs are not being met in this moment. We're experiencing these things and thinking like at that moment when we're six, like this person doesn't love me. This doesn't feel
Yeah.
like unconditional love. This doesn't feel like love. That feels like pain. I don't like that. I don't like this feeling, and so there's this perception very early on when we're kids that the people around us don't really love us.
Mm-hmm.
And how on earth do we navigate through reality as children when we don't feel loved? I mean, I was the oldest. I know that my mom, without even realizing it, put me in the role of parenting my siblings.
Mm,
And so I lost some of my childhood as a result of that, and I didn't know this until decades later that I had like almost avoided being a kid because I had to be a grown up for the little ones. And
yes.
oh man, so like all the things you learn about yourself when you do the self introspection work and the, self realization work, I think that, I mean, that's the magic.
It
That's
is.
it's the stuff that comes through unpeeling the onion and
Mm-hmm.
seeing yourself and really, really taking a good look at yourself. Because when you see the beauty within. You see your heart, you see your love, you see your light, you see your connection to spirit. Like there's so many things you can find within you that we are taught for such a long time to wear masks and pretend that they don't exist.
Yeah. And we're
So,
conditioned, like you were mentioning,
yeah,
like you get conditioned because you're like, oh, this is how I have to receive love. This is how I'm gonna be able to receive love if I just,
right.
you know. So,
Yeah. So you mentioned before we hit record, and you mentioned it also in the recording
Mhm.
about serving neurodivergent people. And
Yeah.
I'd love for you to highlight, like, what does that mean for you? And how do you feel this is like a big part of your practice?
Yeah. So specifically being neurodivergent myself, I was diagnosed when I was a teenager, and I, at the time, was, going to therapy and talking with psychiatrists and doing all the things. And at the time, I was pretty much convinced that, hey, I'm gonna have to take this medicine for the rest of my life to be able to operate the way that society wants me to.
Hmm.
And it just didn't feel right and it didn't sit right with me. So, I did it until basically I was done with high school. And I remember turning 21 and just being like, I don't really want to do this anymore. Like, this just, I don't like taking pills, and like, I don't want to go to the doctor every 3 months, like, all the things. But I also didn't like the way it made me feel in my body. And so I started being able to create systems that work for me as a neurodivergent. It was a lot of trial and error, and still to this day, I am making new systems based off of new input and informations that I get from my own experiences. But I want to help people understand really that although sometimes our community can be underserved and misunderstood, there is still a way to work with it. And even if we are diagnosed later in life, that is not something that you have to be dependent on as an issue. It's not always an issue. It's more so something that we can look at as, how can I use this as a gift? And being able to let myself kind of navigate this instead of wanting to fix it, just like emotions are communicators, our gifts are communicators too, especially with sometimes like the way that my brain works. We've talked about this and I know you've said it, but like you get squirrely, and you want to do all these things at one time, or you just get really excited and your mind's in different directions. And um, when that happens, I also kind of refer back to my inner child work, and being able to kind of grab the reins and be like, all right, I can feel myself losing the grip, and I'm observing that, no judgment, but I am noticing that I need to change my process right now and step in and do that. Also, I will say too that I'm sure you can relate as like a neurodivergent, but having some of the routines in place for certain people, they can do the same routine every day. For me, I cannot do that. It really depends how I show up for myself that day. Like, for instance, on low energy days, I have a low energy routine that I'm sticking to. These are the things that I need to get done, and then I can do what I need to do, and that can be the bare minimum. Like, I know sometimes it can be hard with mental health issues to want to get up and take care of yourself or go on a walk or even take a shower, Like it can be those little things that get to be really big things for us. So I really want to make sure that people know like there are tools out there, and I'm willing to kind of share those tools and be able to have those conversations and coach them through it, if you will. But I also just, that's a part of my mission, is to serve like-minded people that are similar to me in that way and don't necessarily know how to navigate it and how to release the expectations of neurotypical society. So again, like maybe just working through things in a different way that works for us, and being able to have the ability to share those ideas freely, knowing that not one size fits all, but knowing that it's an option to show up in a healthier and better way, not only mentally but physically for self. And that looks different every day for me. So still something I'm navigating again, like I said. But it's important to me. And I know that with my generational embodiment work that I've done on myself, that's a part of my purpose and my work outside of even just the inner child work. I want to be able to help people tend to their brains a little bit more and be with their bodies more and tune in and listen and know how they're actually feeling enough to be able to show up how they need to, even if it is a low energy day. But we need to celebrate all of our wins, even if they're small. That's helped me a lot too. Like being it like, yeah, I can check something off my list, or like I can feel good that I did this for myself today, even though I didn't really want to. And sometimes too as neurodivergent we forget little things, or we get frustrated. Like I love stimming, I love doing different things, and like I was showing, my little squishmallows, like I like holding on to this. It makes me feel safe, I like having little fidgets. Like I need that. And sometimes when I'm in groups, it keeps me concentrated. And I would love for that to be normalized, so I'm trying to leave my mark with that.
Yeah, I think as we move through, awakening and coming into our spiritual gifts on this planet and all the things that are happening in this ascension journey and everything that's happening right now, it seems that um, it really is becoming normalized. I
Mhm.
attend a lot of events and, particularly like tabling events where, a lot of vendors are, and it seems like at least 20% of those vendors have some kind of fidget thing on their
Mhm.
table as a giveaway. So it's already becoming normalized. It's slow. And I mean, this is kind of how society works, because I mean, I can tell you that as an Akashic practitioner in the 1980s, Akashic records were not even a conversation. In the 1990s, when Linda Howe released her book about how to open the Akashic records, then it started the conversation and people started to understand it. In 2012, when the world shifted, we really literally shifted in 2012. At that time, the globe, the collective made a choice that we were not going to go into World War III. We were going into heaven on earth. And we chose that path. And I've seen it more and more and more as the world has shifted since 2012, that we are here awakening the planet and bringing more light to the planet. And that's why we're here right now. That's why we're
Mhm.
doing this work.
Yep.
It's for that reason, so that we can elevate into this higher frequency and get into alignment with this beautiful planet that is supporting us and loving us and giving us everything we need to live. So I love the concept of shamanic Reiki and working with the medicine wheel and working with the planet and the elements. I think that's so completely in alignment with just acknowledging who we are as human beings in relation to the planet that we live on. It's beautiful. So
Mhm.
it's amazing work that you're doing. Okay, so we have covered an awful lot, my entire page of notes, like an entire page of notes here. So, is there anything that we missed? Anything else that you'd like to talk about today?
Really, I just want to make sure that I touch on the fact that no matter what stage we're in our lives, even if this is just me planting a seed or even as a loving reminder, I want everyone that watches this video or even just interacts with me or even you, because I know that you agree with this, Stephanie, is that love is our greatest teacher. And being able to show up with love for not only self, but others, and again, nature and the world. Giving back to humanity is what is going to continue to drive us in the right direction. And I know we've seen it, and we're going to continue to see different bits and pieces of it,
Mhm.
exposed where necessarily they might not want us to see it. But it's true. And it's such a gift to be able to learn to love ourselves a little bit deeper through some of the suffering that we've been through. But I think when you realize that love is your greatest teacher, you realize that suffering doesn't have to happen. It can be something that you look at through a different lens. But as a teacher, as a guide, as a facilitator, practitioner, that's my lens that I look through. And I know you could probably attest to this yourself, Stephanie, but look through the loving lens, and remember that love is always going to come back, and it's always going to invite you back into yourself in a new way. So I hope that you always keep an open mind and open heart and be able to hold space for your becoming, but also for who you've been, to get you here. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I have so many things we could talk about, really, but I just want to make sure I said that.
Thank you. Yeah, we could probably talk for hours, right? But okay, so how can people reach you, Julia? What is
Yeah.
the best way to get in touch?
So I would say right now, Instagram is the best way to get in touch or see some of my offerings. I also know that Stephanie will have my website available for you guys, but my Instagram is Love Cultivator, LoveCultivator. Love Cultivator. And I also have my booking link on there in my link tree, as well as my events that I'll be serving the community with as well. So keep an eye out for those. If you have any questions, you can always send me a message. I do have my Facebook, but it's not necessarily tied to Love Cultivator. But feel free to add me on there too if you'd like to connect. I will respond to messages on there too regarding work and can always help you out as well through that avenue and that channel.
Excellent. Okay. Now, my final question for you is,
Mhm.
would you like to share some inspiration with our audience?
Yes, I really would. Um, I hope that, you know, not only through this conversation that Stephanie and I are sharing with you, but I hope that you realize that you are your biggest inspiration and that you can look at yourself with such a again, that loving lens, that you admire the journey that you've been able to take in life and where it's gotten you, and be able to really continue to plant the seeds and do things that make you happy. Release the expectations, release that need to know the outcome and how you're going to get to places and do certain things, because the universe has such a beautiful way of showing up for us unexpectedly with things that are so much better than we could have ever imagined. So, my message to you is to never stop dreaming, to always learn to love yourself a little bit deeper, and to remember to hold yourself with grace and compassion during some of those heavier times as well. And to always celebrate all of your wins, no matter how big or how small. And remember to share love with people in your community as often as possible. That's my message.
Beautiful. I love it. Oh, thank you, Julia. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much again for having me. I'm so honored to share this space with you, this conversation, and uh, you're such a beautiful being. So I'm really glad that we could touch the community through this conversation together.
For sure. Okay. Bye.
Bye.